Now, tables, charts, and maps can serve as standalone graphics, or they can be combined into a dashboard that highlights key performance indicators. Now, there are four different types of dashboards: strategic, analytical, operational, and informational. Strategic features high level measures and forecasts that are typically targeted at leadership, for example, like a CEO or a manager. Analytical dashboards feature data interaction and drill down. You'll find them, for example, in a New York Times article where they discuss the data in the article and then present it in a dashboard that you can interact with. Operational dashboards feature system and event monitoring. You can imagine, for example, an oil field company who has a lot of equipment in the field and they want to constantly monitor it. And if a certain measurement falls outside a range, that it gets highlighted on the dashboard. Last, informational dashboards feature general information typically targeted at the general public. The dashboard on the right is an example of an informational dashboard in which you have maps, charts, and tables that are combined in a way to present some general information. In this case, world population and growth, world internet users and growth, and world mobile subscribers and growth. Now, some key elements associated with making a great dashboard include keeping it simple. This really improves communication. If you have a lot of complex graphics or you have too much data, it often can make it difficult for your audience to understand how to extract the information they need out of it. You want to minimize distractions because they cause confusion. So be thoughtful about the graphics you choose and make sure they reinforce the data and don't distract away from it. You want to support organized business with meaningful and useful data. So be thoughtful about the data you select because, for example, if you're making a strategic dashboard, you only want that data that's really going to tell the big picture for that organization. When making a dashboard, you need to apply human visual perception to visual presentation of information. And so as you make the dashboard, think about how the user will understand and interact with it, not just how you think they should, because often those aren't necessarily the same things. So you might be able to use your friends to, for example, test the dashboard to make sure they interact with it in a way that you expect. Make sure your dashboard can be accessed easily by its intended audience. So, for example, if your audience are museum visitors, maybe it needs to be a large format screen that they can interact and touch with. Or if it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be looking at on their smartphones, you need to think about that as you format and present your data. Last, some of the best dashboards feature real-time links to supporting data. And so users don't just go to the dashboard once, they keep revisiting the dashboard because the underlying data is always being updated. Here's some best practices for publishing dashboards. First, make sure you select the right metrics. You have a limited amount of space to work with, and so you have to be very thoughtful about the data you select so that it reinforces your purpose and is targeted towards your intended audience. Make sure you choose the right visualization. Again, there's a lot of choices because we can combine tables, charts, maps, factoids, for example. And so we just don't need them all. We need to make sure that we're selecting the right graphic visualization for our particular dashboard. So it might mean excluding, for example, a bar chart or a map if it doesn't really reinforce our purpose. Make sure you show your data and don't distort it. Again, we want to maintain graphical integrity when we're presenting and visualizing data. Sometimes dashboards need a little bit of context, so the dashboard and the underlying data can stand on its own. And so you can add some text here and there and labels to provide that context. Make every pixel count. Really great design is not visible. It frames the data and brings it to the forefront so we're focused on the data and not the presentation. Last, you want to consider your medium. Again, are people going to be viewing the dashboard in a report? Are they going to be viewing it at a conference that's projected on a large screen or on their smartphone? And that's going to impact the choices you make about how you create your dashboard. On the right-hand side of your screen is an example of a report that includes a dashboard. In this case, it's the Next Generation 911 Geospatial Data Assessment reports being generated by our own students that are working for the ACC Incubator in partnership with the Commission on State Emergency Communication. These reports are typically 20 to 30 pages, and a lot of times they're kind of difficult reading. And so the very first page includes a dashboard to make it easy to understand the contents of the entire report without having to read the entire thing. So in addition to an introductory paragraph, it includes a spatial assessment, topological assessment, and geocoding assessment summary. The spatial assessment summary includes little maps that include a ring to show plus or minus spatial errors associated with structures, driveways, and roads. And then the topological and geocoding assessment have pie charts that show how much of the data is clean and how much is dirty. You can even use spreadsheet software like Google Sheets to publish tables, charts, and maps directly to the web. In this example, I'm using Google Sheets, and on the right, I've selected a GeoChart and clicked on More Options. And in the menu, click on Publish Chart, and that opens the Publish to the Web window. Then I need to choose whether I need to publish a link or embedded code that I'm going to put on a web page. In this case, it's just a link, and I click the Publish button. That expands the window to provide me with a URL that I could, for example, email to somebody, or I can copy and paste it directly into a browser window to open my interactive map in a web page. And so what I like about the election dashboard project we're working on is it steps us through the process of collecting, transforming, and visualizing data, the same things we've been talking about the last 3 weeks. You collect the data from the MIT Election Data and Science Lab, and then you use Google Sheets to transform the data both in format and values. Last, you're going to utilize Google Looker Studio to visualize the data as a dashboard, and then you'll publish that dashboard on a Google Sites web page. And that wraps up our topic, visualizing data. At this point, you should be able to apply Ed Tufte's guidelines for visualizing data, including striving for graphical integrity, maximizing data ink, avoiding chart junk, increasing data density, and applying aesthetic elegance. You should also be able to list best practices in creating tables, including keeping it simple, resizing columns to data, and removing repetition. You should be able to list best practices in creating charts, including emphasizing trends and relationships, not using effects and chart junk, and choosing the right chart. You should be able to list best practices in creating maps, including balancing arrangements, considering subject geography, and having a visual hierarchy that supports your intellectual hierarchy. You should be able to list best practices in publishing dashboards, including selecting the right metrics, choosing the right visualization, and considering your medium. And last, you'll create and publish a dashboard with tables, charts, and maps using best practices.